Hi, welcome to Spinning. In this video, we are going to go over how to properly do a power cable replacement in our Spinner Chrono, NXT Power, and Pro Power bikes. So real quick, if you have a console that is not turning on, or if you're hearing a very loud humming noise coming from the generator area, which is towards the front of the bike, you probably or might have a power cable that is damaged or actually cut. So we're going to go through exactly how to do it properly, and we're going to show you some tricks on how to prevent it from happening in the future. We're also going to go through all the tools needed to do the job properly. After troubleshooting, and if it's determined that your bike does need a power cable replacement, here are the parts and the tools you'll need prior to performing the work. So the parts you're going to need are definitely a tie wrap. You'll need the replacement power cable. And the tools you're going to need to do the job properly are a round file, 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench, a 3 millimeter Allen wrench, a set of cutters. You need some electrical tape. We also recommend you get some painter's tape to protect the flywheel. You're also going to need a couple lengths, and these are strings cut to about 3 foot long. It's going to help us run the cable through the frame and handlebars. You'll need a measuring tape and a couple rags or towels to do the job properly. Now, if you're working on a chrono, we highly recommend that you find one of these specialty tools. All the other tools and parts, of course, you can get the parts and the tools at a hardware store, except for the cable that comes from us. But you'll be getting this specialty small ratcheting tool. If you can order it, this one's a Craftsman, you can order it. And this does make your life a lot easier on the Chrono bike, getting the cable clamp out of the bike easily without having to drop a flywheel. Now, we do have a T15 bit with this, or you can also use a 3 millimeter bit to get inside the bike to remove the clamp for the wire. So try to get one of these. Does make your life a lot easier if you're working on this model bike, the Chrono. When troubleshooting for possible damage on a power cable, there's a few things that you can look for first. So let's go over that. You might have a console that is not turning on at all when somebody is actually pedaling the bike, because when you pedal the bike, the generator is sending power through that power cable, and that will automatically turn on the console. So if you've got a cut cable, the console will not turn on, and you won't hear any loud noise or any humming noise out of the generator. Another thing that we found that's happening is the cable will actually get caught internally below the post that goes up and down inside the frame, and it'll get caught under the post and it'll hit the frame. There's a stop on the inside where the handlebars will stop on it. It gets caught underneath it, and it can potentially pinch it or cut the cable. Now, to troubleshoot for that, I'm going to go over to a bike here. What you should hear in a normal operating bike is when you pull the pop pin all the way out, and you can move the handlebars up and down. I'm holding the pop pin all the way out. If it comes all the way down, you'll hear a metallic sound, metal to metal, as you hear here. That means the cable is in the right position. Now, on this bike, the cable has definitely worked its way under the handlebar post. And if you do the same thing, pull the pop pin all the way out, and you let the handlebars come all the way down trying to hit the stop, this is a very soft, I can feel it's soft, and you're not going to hear any noise. So at some point, you're probably going to have a cable get damaged or cut if that's happening. So there's a few things that we can do, which we'll cover here in a second. The other thing that you might find is you're going to hear a very loud noise coming from the generator area. If the cable is pinched or slightly cut, what we found is the cable will actually provide power to the console. It'll turn on, but you'll hear a very loud noise, which we're going to show you in a video. So we're going to show you a normal sounding generator with a cable that's good, and then we're also going to show you a sound that could potentially mean that the cable is damaged, and of course you'll need to replace it. So even though we know that this bike has a cable that is potentially going to have some damage soon because it is underneath of the post, and the post is coming into contact with the wire between the post itself and the stop inside the frame, the wire is still good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to show you how a normally operating cable works and sounds with the generator. So as you pedal the bike, I'm going to come down here, as you pedal the bike, the generator is always going to make a very subtle hum. It's not very loud at all, but you will hear a subtle hum, and the console's going to turn on. It'll be nice and bright. I can see the RPM that is showing on the console. So everything's working properly, and it's fairly quiet with a little hum. Now what we're going to show you is we're going to we have a damaged cable that was from another bike. I'm going to have an assistant come in. We're going to plug that in outside of the bike and actually show you the potential sound you can get. It's actually pretty loud when the generator is shorting because we have a damaged cable. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to show you the sound that can happen with a potentially damaged cable. So in this case, we do have a cable connected to the bike that's been damaged in the field. What we've done is we've unplugged the current cable that's internally running through the bike from the console, and we've plugged the damaged cable into the console outside of the bike, as you can see, and we've plugged it into the generator. Now I'm going to pedal the bike, and you're going to hear this noise that definitely lets you know that this power cable is damaged. So as I pedal the bike, you can hear this much louder hum. So there's that noise. It's easy to tell that bike is making a lot of noise. The generator is basically shorting out, and that cable definitely needs to be replaced. So now I'd like to actually show you a damaged cable and what you'll find when you get the cable out of the bike or when you're troubleshooting looking at the cable. So the coil section actually is inside of the post of the handlebars. So right below the coil section, 1 to 2 inches below, is where it gets caught, and you'll see the pinch or damage in the housing of the wiring. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on how to properly replace the power cable in our bikes. Now I do want to mention that this is a Chrono bike, so with this bike, if you have the proper tool, remember I was talking about this specialty ratchet wrench with a T15 Torx insert, you can use this to access there's a clamp on the inside here that holds the wire. You can access it very easily by taking the head badge off, which we'll get into here in a second, and using this tool to get inside to just take that little clamp off. The clamp is similar to the clamp that's holding the generator wire down here. That's inside the frame. The other two bikes are Pro Power and our NXT Power. You will need to do a flywheel drop to access that clamp that's inside there. Please see our other videos on how to properly drop those flywheels out of the bike so you can gain access to that wire clamp and then go ahead and do the wire replacement. All three bikes are very similar except for that one aspect of those two other model bikes. Now in this video, what I'm going to be using, because I do have access to this tool, I'm going to be using that to do the power cable replacement without dropping a flywheel. If you don't have that tool and you're working on a Chrono, this model bike, you can just go ahead and drop the flywheel to access that small clamp bolt easily. Now you could, if you'd like, if you don't have this tool, you could use a small 3mm Allen wrench to get in there, but it just takes an awful long time, so it's a lot easier probably for you to carefully drop the flywheel and then proceed with the next steps in replacing that power cable. Okay, to get started on the power cable replacement, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be taking the console off. Now this is consistent with all three of our bikes, so the Chrono, which I'm working on now, NXT Power, Pro Power bikes. They all have the same console, same wire, so we're going to go ahead and get started with that first. So what I like to do to access the 4 bolts, these use a 4mm Allen wrench to take them off. To access that easier is I always put the handlebars forward on the fore aft and then lock this down. Just makes it a lot easier to get in here, and then when you're putting the wire in and you have to put the console back on with that all forward, it just makes your life a lot easier, so I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my 4mm and I'm going to take this off. Now on the Chrono, it's extremely important to be aware the Chrono uses magnetic resistance. There's 10 magnets in here. They are really strong. So you do not want to lose any of these bolts because they can get sucked in and get stuck on the bottom of the magnet, and then if anybody ever hits the emergency stop, it's going to bring that screw down on top of the flywheel. And I've done this before. I've not paid attention when I was doing work. I was rushing, ruined the flywheel. So you don't want to do that because that's an expensive fix. So always pay attention to where your screws are. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the console right now before I get started on the power cable replacement. So I'm going to take those out. Again, that's a 4mm. To take the back plate off. So again, pay attention to your screws or your bolts. And then that's going to come off. And I always set everything aside so I know that nothing's got caught on the magnets on the Chrono. So I'm going to set that aside. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to unclip. It's just like a old phone cord. Unclip it. There's a little tab. Just put your nail on it, push it down. Then your console's going to come off. Don't want to drop this. Set it aside so it's out of the way. Now that's on all 3 bike models. Next thing I'm going to do on the Chrono, now like I said before, we're going to be using this specialty tool, small ratchet wrench with that T15 on it to access the clamp that holds this wire inside the bike right below the post. You can take the head badge off and then you can get access to the screw that holds that clamp on. So to get this head badge off, it is a 3mm Allen wrench. So we need to loosen this all the way up, and then this head badge actually pops straight down, which I'll show you. So you need to loosen this screw all the way up, and you need to get the screw out. So I've got it loose. Now sometimes I can't get it out, right? So I'm going to have to tip the bike forward so it drops out. Now when I do that, I need to make sure that I do have that, because if it gets sucked into that magnet, we got a big problem. So always pay attention to that. So again, this needs to come all the way out because I'm going to pop this straight down. If you sit here and pull on this, it's plastic, you could potentially break it. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. I've got the console off. Fore aft is tight, handlebars are tight. I can get a hold of the bike. I'm going to lean it forward onto the transport wheels and just get that wire, that bolt to pop out, which you can see it did. It fell on the floor. I know where it is. It's not on the magnet. So I've got it right here. Now this head badge, I'm going to set that aside. That head badge pops straight down and out. So you can see the little divot in the frame that we have there, and then you can see where that slides in. So again, you don't want to pull on this because you'll break it. So when you go to put this back on, it's just going to pop in there like that, and you can line up the hole, put the bolt back in, and just snug it up. So that's how you pop. It's down, pops out. Off you go. That's going to give us access, which we'll show you here in a second, to the wire clamp that's right inside here. Okay, the next step, because on the Chrono we want to protect the outer rim of the flywheel. This is anodized. You don't want to scratch this, so we're going to be using that painter's tape to protect the outer rim, and we're also going to be using a rag to create a barrier between the magnets and what we're doing inside here. So you've got, a tool it's magnetic, right? It's going to get pulled in. So we're going to put a barrier with that rag and protect both the flywheel and the magnets from any damage. So I'm using a pretty standard size rag here. So what you want to do is you're going to be folding this up and putting it underneath the magnet. So before I get started on that, I'm going to take the resistance and I'm going to loosen it up so the magnets come way up so that I can get that rag underneath after I put the tape on. So let's go ahead and put the tape on the flywheel. Again, this is just to protect that outer rim. I'm just going to take a nice long piece and just stick it on the flywheel. And you're just basically just going to roll that right up inside there where you're going to be doing the work. So you're going to be doing work right in this area, so make sure that tape is pretty much up inside the bike and under. You can feel the magnets, just make sure they're under. So you can see I've got tape from here to here. So I can see it on both sides. That's good. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that rag and I'm going to fold it just so it's sort of thick. So there's two. It's pretty thick. I'm going to come over here, and that's why I've loosened up the resistance. So I pulled the magnets up so I can get this rag underneath. And you're basically just going to wrap it around the flywheel and then just try to pull it in and look inside here, and you can see the white felt on top of the magnets in there. Just make sure it's sort of forward of that, and then take the resistance and add resistance so that the magnets are starting to come closer to the flywheel, and you're going to come all the way down the best you can. So that's going to come in contact with the rag, you'll feel it, and just tighten that resistance all the way up. So it's going to help protect things. Now remember, you still got magnets in here. You've got to pay attention to everything. So this is just helping protect everything as I do the work. Okay, this is a close view of the inside of the bike. As you can see, I've got the flywheel protected with tape. The tape is all the way up inside the bike where I'm going to be doing the work. I've got my rag stuffed underneath of the magnets. Now what you also want to do is create a barrier across the front of the magnets here. So you just want to kind of, I use whether it's an Allen wrench or a screwdriver or something, and just push that rag up. You can see it's already up a little bit for me. Push it up so you're creating a barrier between the front of the magnets and then of course your tool, your ratchet tool, and that bolt that goes into the wire clamp that is holding the wire to the side of the left fork of the frame. That's just going to protect everything for us and keep us out of trouble with tools getting stuck on the magnets or the bolt getting stuck. At this point, we're going to be working, like I said, on this clamp. We need to take this bolt out. So pay attention to how that wire is running. How it should be running is straight up and down and going right into the hole that's on the left side of that fork. We have seen where this is, kind of horizontal. You want it vertical, so it's letting the wire run straight down and into the fork. So pay attention to that, and then you're just going to be careful removing it. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to remove that small bolt using that special tool. So this does take some patience. You're going to take your time doing it. Just going to go ahead and insert that tool in and start just loosening that up. So take your time and go ahead and do that. Okay, now you can see I've got it loose. I can see the bolt, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in there with my finger and I'm going to pull the wire down and out. So you can see now I've got the coil. This is what's running up inside the handlebar post. And if you look closely here, you can see the damage starting here because that wire was caught underneath the handlebar height adjustment post and the stop inside the frame. You can see it's starting to press down on it. Now if that has a cut in it, then you know, but I can actually see the damage starting to happen. So you can do one of two things here. You can always take a marker if you'd like and put a little mark there so you can reference it to the new wire and putting the clamp on, or like I like to do it, I like to make sure I get everything in and then we put the clamp on and make sure everything is snug, which we'll show you as we get to that step. So at this point, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull down on this, and I'm going to go ahead and take the, I know this is hard to see here, but I'm going to pull that little bolt out of the clamp. So I've got it. It's not against the magnets. I'm going to set that aside, don't lose it. And I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to pull this clamp off. So you're just going to open it up and it'll pop off. So that clamp goes like this. So the bolt goes back, clamp goes vertical, not horizontal once we get everything tight in there. You want to make sure that it stays like this, especially as you're tightening things up, which we'll review as we get into that step. Okay, now that we've got the wire clamp out of the bike and off the wire, we can now access the wire and pull it through the frame. We need to disconnect the generator. So the generator is fragile, so you always want to be very careful at outer shell. There's a little clamp right here so that we can, pull that wire up through the frame. So we're going to go ahead and unclip it. There's a little tab right here on the generator side, right here. Just take your nail, push down on it, and it unclips. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take that tie wrap, we're going to take our clippers and just snip that tie wrap off, set that aside. Okay, now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running this wire we're going to be pulling the wire up out of the frame. So to easily put it back, the new one back in, we're just going to take a string, and I like to tie it, kind of like run it through the wires here so that it holds it. And go ahead and just put a little knot in that, so you don't have to do this again or make a mistake. So I just like to do this. It's pretty tight. Now what I'm going to do is I can reach in here and I can grab this wire, and I'm just going to slowly but surely just pull that string of wire right up and through. So you can see how I've done that. Pretty easy. Let it hang. Let's go ahead and take that off. Yeah, you can either cut it or do this. There you go. So now it's out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tape, because I just don't want to make a mistake here and let that string fall out of the frame somehow. You can do this if you'd like. Just want to tape it so it doesn't go anywhere on me. And I can do the same with this. Tape it up here if you'd like, so it's just out of the way. So now that's in there, so when we put the new one in, we can just easily pull it through. Okay, now that the cable has been extracted out of the fork of the frame, and we've got our string to run the new one through, taped and out of the way, now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to pull the handlebars completely out of the bike. So you want to be careful when you're doing this. You don't want this wire to get caught up on this and cause any issues with pulling this out, and then you've got to, you know, fish this all through, which is just going to take you a lot more time. Just be careful with that. So go ahead and grab that. I like to grab underneath the handlebars here. They are a little heavy, so go ahead and pull it out with pop pin, and then slowly extract the handlebars from the bike itself. So here we go. We've got the wire, and this is actually what we're going to be working on next. This section, we're going to take these two 2.5 millimeter screws out, take this off, pull the wire out, and then we're going to be doing some work on these sharper edges. Okay, now that we've got the handlebars out of the bike, I want to quickly explain what is actually happening, because you can see everything. So inside the frame, down inside here, is a stop, and that stop prevents the handlebars from going all the way down into the bike. So that stop comes down right, actually the handlebars come down and hit the stop about right here. Now what we found is in manufacturing on some of our bikes, they didn't properly chamfer this sharp edge here on some of our bikes. So we're gonna do that with the file. That's why we say, you know, bring a file along when you're doing this work. But I want to show you what happens. So as you raise the handlebars, this coil, as you raise and lower the handlebars, this coil keeps that wire inside of the handlebars and out of the way of that stop. Every now and then, because of this sharp edge, what can happen is as you raise the handlebars, this can get caught on that sharp edge, and it prevents it from retracting into the handlebar post, so then it sometimes can work its way over here and it gets caught underneath of the stop, and that's what potentially damage the cable. It does damage it because this is sharp. So we're going to go ahead and pull this cable out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take our file, and we're actually going to file this sharp edge right here as it should be. It's important to just get rid of that sharp edge, so we're just going to chamfer it with our file. You don't have to go crazy on it, but we'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and use my 2.5 millimeter now to get the wire out of the handlebars, and there's two screws here you're just going to pull out. So go ahead and take those out and set them aside. So then you're going to go ahead and pop this off. You can see where the wire runs through there. And now what I like to do, you're going to be pulling it out from this end, not this way, because you got the coil inside here, so it's just easier to go this way. What I like to do is just kind of do this. Now this clamp, if you look closely, has a little clip on it, so you just want to try to get it through there, and it pops right out and you can pull it out. So we'll set that aside. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our file, and we're going to file this sharp edge off. Take your time with this. Do the best you can not to get the filings all over the place. We definitely want to make sure this is cleaned out after we file it. You do not want any of these files, you know, the pieces that you're going to create as you take a little bit of metal off. You don't want all that to end up on top of the magnets in here. So make sure you clean this out before you put the wire back in and put the handlebar post back into the frame. That's extremely important. I've seen guys, they'll jam maybe a little, paper towel in there or something to help. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and file it and just make sure we clean it out. Just like I said, just pay very close attention to that, and don't forget to do that before you put the handlebars back in the bike. Very important. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm using a round file. It's going to make it easier for me to get in this section. And I'm just going to go ahead and take that sharp edge off all the way around the inside here. So again, just taking my time. That's still a little sharp. I'm going to keep working on it. And just run your finger across there lightly. You don't want to cut yourself. Just make sure you're getting rid of that sharp edge. And again, this is important because this is going to prevent the new wire from getting caught up underneath that stop in the post here. So this is one of the most important steps. So make sure you do this right and take your time with it. Okay, that feels good to me. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure I get all these filings cleaned out. So you can see I've got a bunch of filings there. Just make sure you have things cleaned out. Sometimes you can actually blow inside the adjustment holes. Make sure it's clean. Again, we don't want any of these filings getting inside the bike. So I'm just going to take my time, make sure that stuff's all out of there. Okay, looks pretty clean to me. And I can feel that. So if you want to take a quick look here, you can see I've taken that sharp edge off all the way around that larger section. So that's where the wire is going to go into the front section here. And that's going to prevent that wire from getting hung up on that. So make sure every inch of that is nice and smooth. Next step. Now we need to insert our new power cable. And this does take a little bit of time here. We're going to be fishing this back through here, and then you've got to get this larger head, this clip through that small hole. So what I like to do is I like to take a string, and you can run it through here first. And hopefully, let's see how quickly I can do this. So take your time, try to get it through. And sometimes I even take either your tie wrap or that 2.5 mil and try to pull that string through. There we go. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, I've got it. So now I've got that string. Now what we're going to take our new power cable, and we want to make sure that we're using the right end here, and we're going to be inserting it into this end and then pulling it through. So the plug you want to be using is the larger one, of course. It's got the clear plastic on it. Easy way to recognize that. So this is the larger end. We're going to be inserting it in and then pulling it through with the string. Now, here's how we do this. This is the easiest way we found, is you're going to tie the string towards the back, put a knot in it so it's holding it. So go ahead and do that right at the base of the plug itself. And I like to have a little bit of some end on it up here on the string. And just make sure that's a pretty good knot, because you do have to pull a little bit to get this larger plug kind of bent around and pull through here. Okay, now that we've got the string with a knot at the base of the plug, now we're going to take our tape, and here's a little trick for you to make things a little easier. Take your electrical tape, and we're going to take just enough that we can wrap the tape around the actual clip portion and put the string where it needs to be so we can get the plug to come through here, kind of a little bit of a curve, so we can pull it through sort of easily without damaging anything. So go ahead and take a length of this, and then just fold one of the edges over just a little bit so you can easily get this off. You know how electrical tape can be sometimes, a little crazy. So here's what we're going to do. On the opposite side of that little clip is where we want that string to sit. So I'm going to go ahead and take my tape, the end that doesn't have it folded over, of course, and I want to run that right at the underneath of the clip. So on the other side, you can see how it is. So here's a clip right there, fold it over, and then you want to wrap this tight enough that that clip kind of compresses, and just wrap it around. So this is going to make my life a lot easier. Now what we're going to do is we want to put that string towards the front of the handlebars, just guide it down through here. And then you're just going to pull that through. You can give it a little bit of pull. Don't pull real hard, but you're going to have to pull on a little bit, and you can see it popped right through. Get that in there. Make sure the coil is mostly in. And then now let's go ahead, because it's folded over, it's going to be easy for me to peel off. Saving me some time. Set that aside. And then what we want to do is take the string off, of course. So unknot it if you can. We'd prefer you not to cut this off, just because we could potentially damage the power cable. So go ahead and take that off. Now we have this in here. Okay, now that we have the wire through, we want to be careful that it doesn't pull back through. So just be careful and aware of it. We're going to go ahead and put our wire clamp that holds it to the slider portion of the handlebars on. So you can see there's a little tab here that goes in, and then the wire runs straight through the middle like this. Now the length of this is important. This is where you're going to grab your tape measure. You want 10 inches from where it comes out of this clamp to the end of the plug. So let's see what you can do is go ahead and put this on. It's probably pretty close to 10 inches, maybe a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and put those screws back in and keep them loose so that we can adjust this. So again, this is a 2.5. Just get them started. You don't want to cross thread these. So you can see I'm just going to keep it loose. You can even put one in if you'd like to get the proper length. I'm just going to get them started. So I can still kind of, you can see I can still kind of pull on this a little bit. So I'm just adjusting it in and out. So let's go ahead, see where I'm at. So that's 8. I'm going to pull it out just a little bit more. Again, you want right around 10. I mean, you have to be dead on, but 10 is a good number. A little bit more. And yeah, I'm just over 10 inches here, that's good. That way the coil you can see is all the way inside the post. It's going to pull it through it. So now we're going to have, because we've pulled this out a little bit further than what the factory did, it's going to give us a little more spring in that coil. So let's go ahead now and snug these up. Again, these don't need to be real tight. Again, this is plastic. Just make sure that wire is in the center. You can see where it comes out. And then just take those down just so they're snug. And there we go there. Actually, I'm gonna make this a little bit tighter. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the handlebars back into the bike. Okay, so the next step, of course, is putting the handlebar post back into the frame, but we also need to take note of where the wire is running. As you can see inside of the bike, there is a stop that's towards the back of the frame. You want to make sure that the wire is always in front of that, not potentially behind it. So as you put the wire in, do make sure you slowly make sure you keep that towards the front as it runs down inside the bike. Okay, now that we've got our power cable inserted into our handlebar post, we're going to go ahead and put the handlebars back into the bike itself. So again, you want to make sure that this wire is running forward of the stop that's down inside the bike. So as you're doing this, you want to make sure as you slowly feed the wire in that it is in front of the stop, and you can see it down inside the frame. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I can see where it's going. I know I'm in the front, so now you can see it's actually popped out, which is good, and I can see, okay, it's right in the front of that stop in there, and I'm going to go ahead and insert the handlebars in and just go right till it's, you know, one of the highest, at the highest level or close to it. And again, I've got it pulled out here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the handlebars all the way down, and you want to hear that metallic stop. That means things are operating correctly and the wire is not underneath. So I'm going to go ahead and put it right there. Now it's at the lowest setting. So from here, what I can do now is I can now reroute the wire back through the fork, and that's what we've taped this up here for. And this is fairly easy. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. And like I said, what I like to do is just run the string just kind of through the wire portion here. Again, you don't need to make this too tight, just so you can slowly pull it through. This is fairly easy, so you can go ahead and knot that if you'd like, which I'm doing now. And I'm not going to make this super tight on the knot, but there you go. So now what I can do is, if you look inside the frame here, I'm just going to go ahead and run that right inside that hole on the left side. So it's right in here. And you're just going to slowly guide that wire through until it pops out down here for you. Again, it's a little delicate. Just be careful pulling things through. And then just pull it through. So you've got it all the way out. I can see I've got it all the way against the inside here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and take this string off. Set that aside. And now what we're going to do is we're going to actually take our tie wrap and we're going to put this on, and then we're going to put the clamp on. So let's go ahead and talk about how the tension should be and where to properly put the clamp. Okay, now that we've got the handlebars in the bike, you want to make sure again that the handlebars are at the lowest setting. So as you can see, I've got it all the way down. It's hitting the bottom, right? And then if you pop it up maybe just one there, it's in the pop pin at the lowest setting. So you can see the A, at least on the Chrono. This is amongst all the bikes. You want to make sure the handlebars are all the way down so that when we put this clamp on here, we are still providing a little bit of some load on that coil section of the wire itself. So one way you can do this, and what we recommend, is you're going to reach in here and you can actually feel the bottom of the handlebar post right in here. And I can feel it, and we want to make sure that we put the coil, as we pull this down a little bit, you can see the coil there. You want to make sure that coil is right at the bottom. So that's where you're going to be putting this little clamp. Now this clamp in here goes like this. Remember the screw goes behind it, and you want to make sure it's vertical so the wire's going straight down into it and then straight into the hole that runs down the left fork there. So let's go ahead and feel this out. What I like to do is pull this down. You can always go over here too if you need to. You can pull this taunt here, and I can feel where the coil is. So I'm pulling it out of the bottom down here. I can feel the coil and I can feel the bottom of the handlebars. Just get it close. So I'm right there. So I'm going to hold this right here. So now I've got some tension on it. And then I'm going to put my finger right where I think the clamp would go. So I can feel the hole where the bolt goes for the clamp and right where it goes. So it's about right here. So if I pull this out, you can see it's about 1 inch from the base of the coil. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the right way. So we want it like this on the inside. So I'm going to pop that right on top like this. So you can see how I have that. So now it's going to allow me to put the bolt in right here, and that's going to get that coil with just a little bit of load in it, but we can adjust that once we get this in here a little bit. All right, now for the fun part. So we're going to take that screw or bolt, and I'm going to start it through the clamp. And the clamp will hold it somewhat for you, so I've got it in there. And then now you've got to align this all. So I'm going to get this up in there. And you can always adjust things a little bit like this. It's going to help you line things up. And I've got that. I can see now I pretty much can feel where the bolt is going to go in. So then take your handy dandy little special tool. Take your time doing this. You do not want to cross thread anything when you're doing this. That's going to be a big problem. So we're going to go ahead and insert this in. Okay, so once you've got the screw started or the bolts started in there, you're just going to kind of snug it up and take your time doing this. It's a little tedious. Get it snugged up, and then what we want to do is we want to use our finger and go up in here and just make sure the coil is right near the bottom of the handlebar. You can feel it in there. And you can always do a test by standing up and raising the handlebars so I can feel in there it's exactly where I want it. The coil is just at the bottom. Just raise the handlebars up and down slowly, and you can hear it's coming down on the metal. That's good. And then what we're going to do, once we've got this in the right position, if you need to tighten it, you can always pull through here. You might have to pull kind of hard to get it to slide, and you can always put your hands in here also and slide it up in. But just make sure that the coil is right near or close to the bottom of the handlebar post as it's inserted into the frame and all the way down, okay? Also, it's very important that that clamp, before you tighten it fully up, is running vertical. So you want the wire to be going straight down into the hole. You do not want it to be horizontal or angled so that it's doing something like this. Make sure it's going straight down in. So I've got it like that right now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just tighten that up fully. And I'm holding the clamp as I do this so it doesn't, as I tighten it, it's not going to pull up. And you do want to make this tight, so it doesn't need to be really tight, but just snug it up. So you want that to hold the wire so if somebody pulls the handlebars all the way up, it doesn't pull it through and cause some slack. So again, if you look in here, you want to make sure that the wire is, the clamp is vertical. You want to make sure the wire is going all the way up into the handlebars. You've got the bottom of the coil is right at the base of the handlebars. Wire is not touching anything. All clear. So after we've got that, looks good. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take off your protection. So I'm going to go ahead and take the resistance off, or just so it lifts the magnets up so I can get that rag out of there. Reach up in, pull that out. Take a look in there, make sure there's no screws, anything on the felt. And then you can go ahead and peel the tape off slowly. Get rid of that. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to be using a tie wrap to tie this up. We're going to clip the generator in, and we're going to give it a quick test. Okay, now that we have the wire installed in the bike, we need to reinstall a tie wrap. So you're going to have some slack down here, so you can go ahead and just kind of push a little bit of that back into the fork itself, so you can see I don't have a whole lot out. And depending on what dropout, what model or version Chrono you have, you might not have this section here. You can either tie wrap all the way around that dropout section just to hold the wire, or you can actually use the cutout section that's in this model bike. So I'm just going to pull it down just enough that I can run that tie wrap through. And again, it's just to keep the wire from getting in the way of things. So I'm going to go ahead and do this and just snug it up. Doesn't have to be real tight, it's just holding the wire. So you can see now I've got a nice clean line. Use your cutters, clip it. Sometimes I like to just push that down under a little bit so we're good to go. Okay, pretty much we are finished with installing the power cable. Next thing I would do, of course, is put the belt guards back on. Make sure when you're putting the belt guards on to not damage the generator shell. Put the front on first and the back side on the Chrono. Same with the other bikes. Be very careful with the generator and don't over tighten those bolts that are 5mm Allen wrench to put them on. So they just need to be snug. Okay, now that we have the wire installed in the bike, what we're going to do now is we're going to reinstall the console. So just going to go ahead. So we've got, again, the 4 screws that are use a 4mm Allen key. Just going to put that on the handlebars so you can see the brass threaded sections that the screws or bolts go into, and then you're just going to take that plug in and make sure it clips right in to the console. Now at this point what I like to do is pedal the bike just to make sure the console turns on and everything's working well. So you can go ahead and just turn it over, and I can see now that yes, the console's coming on, everything seems to be working great. Generator didn't make any noise, so we're all good there. Next thing we need to do after testing that is we need to put the back plate on so that this is mounted correctly. Now on the back plate it is important to make sure that the wire goes through that small slot. That's right here. So that slot goes down, goes like this. What I like to do is just get one of the top screws started first. That's the easiest thing to do from what I found. Again, you don't want to cross thread anything here, so just get them started. So I get one started, like I said, usually at the top. And see if I can get this to go. So we get one started. Just like that. Get another one. And you want to keep these loose in the beginning so that you can make sure that your wire is set right in that little channel there. You don't want to pinch this wire here. And remember, this back plate is plastic, so these just need to be snug. They do not need to be tight. So what I like to do is just make sure everything is straight. You can check it out. Console's on there straight, and then go around, snug them up. Again, they don't need to be too tight. Okay, so we've got the console on. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the head badge. So again, it's going to slot up and in. So you're just going to start it low and then just pop it up in there so you can see the hole for the screw. Put your screw in. This is a 3mm. And go ahead and tighten that up. Again, it's plastic, so you don't need to over tighten it. Just make sure it's snug so it's not moving anywhere. So we've got all that, and now we're pretty much set